Hello, and thank you for volunteering to judge at the Seaman Forensics Tournament. Forensics is basically just a generalized term for public speaking, competitive speaking, and acting. There's a lot of variety of different events that you might judge over the course of your time here. And that's what we'll discuss here, kind of the what to do before you show up, when you show up, while you're judging, and then after you're done judging. So let's go ahead and begin with the general information that you might want to know. First off, thank you. Please understand that competitions like this simply would not be possible if you did not volunteer your time to listen to these students from all across the state of Kansas come to Seaman and do their performances to the best of their ability. Truly, truly, thank you for providing an opportunity for these kids and for making our tournament one of the best there is to attend in the state of Kansas. Second, you might want to know what to bring before you show up to the tournament. The only thing that you need to bring is a writing utensil. I prefer a pen. You can bring whatever it is that you feel most comfortable in writing with. You'll know that you'll have to write on the ballots as you're judging. Therefore, the only thing that you need to bring is a writing utensil. Some judges do bring a timing device. However, we do not offer official timekeepers at our tournament, so if you choose to keep time for the events, you may, but you certainly do not have to keep time. Third is understand that judging means that you are always right. Simply put, this is your opinion. So when you step into a room and you are the judge, you will watch the students perform, and after every one of them has performed, you will provide your feedback as to who you thought was the best. You have to rank them. But what you also need to understand, what the kids understand, is that it is your opinion on who you thought was the best through who was the worst. Unlike other competitions, say band, they'll bring in an expert in the field, and let's say you're doing a percussion in band and you're trying out at a tournament or that sort of thing, or a festival. That specific professional in that field would be able to evaluate specific things towards drumming. Forensics is a little bit different. All students know coming into the tournament that the judges in the back of the room are not professionals in acting or public speaking. They're simply everyday people off the street. So the goal of forensics is actually to entertain and to move the audience into some direction to get them to feel like you were the best performer in the room. Students know that coming in, and you should know that coming in as well, because that should probably alleviate some of the fears that you might have as to whether or not you believe yourself to be a quality or qualified judge. Trust me, everybody who's watching this video is a qualified judge coming to our tournament. Let's go ahead and go through the procedures of the day. First off, you need to arrive about 15 minutes prior to your first scheduled judge time. So if you've signed up to judge at the 8:30 time, we would hope that you could arrive at about 8:15. You want to arrive and enter through the front doors of the building at the very front of the Seaman High School. There should be some arrows along the wall to point you to the direction that you need to get to. Where the judge check-in table will be located is outside of the bank, which is located in the middle of the building. We put it there because we will utilize almost every classroom in the school, so we put it at a central location to be able to be located by judges throughout the course of the day. Once you find it once, you'll know exactly where to go to each time you need to return. When you check into the table, students will give you a card that will have your scheduled rounds of judging on it. It will tell you what room numbers you're supposed to go to and what events you'll be judging in that particular room. If we have you scheduled to judge at a time in which you are not actually available to judge or no longer available to judge at a particular time, please let the judge table know at that time so that they can make arrangements and put in standby judges and or make calls for people to fill in that position. We want to make sure that we have everything accurate for the times that you volunteer to judge. Finally, we ask that you please report to your room at the scheduled time. Some of these rooms are going to be awfully tight in terms of competitors and the time allotted. Each round is an hour and a half, and the maximum time of any one performance is going to be 10 minutes. However, sometimes there's going to be about 7 to 8 performers in every room, which leaves very little downtime. So if you could arrive right when that round is supposed to is scheduled to occur, we would appreciate it. It will make our tournament run a lot smoother. In terms of the events, some general information to think about is I would like when you arrive to your scheduled room to check the schedule outside of the door. This will help everybody involved. You need to make sure that you are taking attendance essentially of who is supposed to be performing in your room versus who is not. If you could verify with each competitor that walks into your room that they're actually supposed to be in there, that would be very helpful. I will tell you that if a competitor performs in the wrong room, they will automatically get last in that room, and therefore that hurts their chances of actually making it into the medaling round of the day. Second is you want to find an area to sit in the room that allows for the maximum amount of performance space for the competitors. Basically, don't sit in one corner of the room and force the competitors to kind of perform in that corner. It kind of limits their space. The ideal situation is you're sitting in the back of the room and the performers are in the front of the room with plenty of enough space to allow them to do their performance. The other thing to note is that performers do not have to perform in order. The only event that has to perform in order according to the attendance schedule outside of your room is in the event of extemporaneous speaking. All other performances can go in the order they want. Sometimes that's a little frustrating for judges because you might have one or two competitors right at the beginning of your scheduled round, and then you're sitting there for 10, 15, 20 minutes even, waiting on that next competitor. Please be as patient as you possibly can. Maybe bring something to do a little bit on your phone or that sort of thing while they're going. But do know that they do not have to perform in the order that's listed on the schedule. Finally is before that competitor performs, make sure that you double check with them. What will happen is they'll walk into the room, they will say hello or good morning, they will hand you their ballot. We'll look at a ballot here in a second. They will move to the performance area in the room, and then they will begin their performance. Once they're completed with their performance, they will leave. And you will continue that process until you've seen everyone on your room list. Make sure you're really checking that room list because we would hate for you to have to sit in that room longer than you need to. As soon as you have everybody checked and you've seen everybody that's supposed to perform in your room, you can end. So if your round only takes 45 minutes, 50 minutes to get through, that's fantastic. And you've maximized your use of time. Next, in terms of general things to note, you should not interrupt the performer as they are performing. Now, you may show emotion as you're judging. So if something is funny, you can laugh. If something is very emotional, you can cry. Feel free to show your emotions to the judge, or I'm sorry, to the competitors. But please don't interrupt them while they're performing, such as asking them questions about their performance or asking them why they chose to do this and why not that. Essentially, let them do their performance the best they can. The kids are very, very nervous when they're competing, and when there's interruptions from adults, it makes them even more nervous, and this is not the norm for our competing event. Also, please turn off your phone while a student is performing. There's nothing more frustrating for me as a coach when I have a competitor come back and say, well, I was doing my performance, I thought it was going really good, but the judge was just on their phone the entire time. That's very discouraging to these kids, and it teaches them, I think, the wrong lesson. So please feel free to have your phone opened and used when there's no competitor in the room. But when a competition or competitor is going, please turn it off. Third, you may write on your ballot as the performer is performing. The students are used to this style of judging. You don't necessarily need to feel like you have to sit there and watch them the entire performance. You can write things during their performance. Obviously, please feel free to write things after their performance as well. But you can do both, which might save you some time at the end of the round if you feel like, well, I can't write anything while they're performing, so I'll have to wait till the end of the round. And then lo and behold, we get to the end of the round and we're crunched on time because you've signed up to also judge the round after. And so it saves some time if you're able to write a few things as the performance is ongoing. Next, you should not rank performances until after seeing all performers. I've seen this mistake happen a lot of times where somebody comes in, you think they're the best one, you give them a 1, like it's amazing. Then the very next performer comes in and you're like, wow, they're even more amazing. So you have to scratch out that 1 and then put the other 1 with a 1, and it really just makes for a messy ballot. So please don't rank or rate any of your performers until after you've seen all performers in the room. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the ballot. Now, you'll have a chance to see a variety of different events at our tournament, but understand that pretty much every ballot has the same 4 requirements for you to do as a judge. Number 1 is you need to sign your name so we know who the ballot belongs to, so in case we have any questions, we can track you down and or call or ask. Second, you need to rank each contestant in the round. Something to know about ranking is this. No 2 contestants can receive the same rank. So if you have 6 contestants in your round of, let's say, poetry, no 2 people can be the number 1 poetry in that room. It has to be ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if you are, by your opinion, this person was the worst person in the room, they get sixth, and so on and so forth. No, even if they're two fantastically awesome pieces of poetry in that performance round, no two people can receive the same rank. However, the next thing we look at is the contestant rating. That is different. That is a scale of 1 to 25. Now, two contestants may receive the same rating. So if I'm in that same poetry round and I have two performers that are absolutely fantastic, but I can't give them both the 1, I can give one kid a 125 and I can give the other kid a 225. What I'm indicating to the performers is by quality, you were exactly dead on, amazing, awesome, but I had to give someone the 1 and someone the 2. So you do that with your rating. The ratings should correspond though. So if I give someone a 123, I should not give my 2 a 24 or a 25. That doesn't make sense. So your rating and your ranking should be corresponding with one another. Also, please don't be too offensive with your ratings. There's nothing disheartening for a kid, even if it's really, really bad. It's not a great performance. Still, you don't have to give them such a low rating that it makes them feel bad about themselves and not want to do the activity anymore. So be a little bit generous with your rating to encourage them to continue on, even in those performances where it's not particularly great. Don't use it as a severe punishment. The final thing that you have to have on your ballot is you need to provide some feedback. And what we mean by feedback is try to do both good and bad things that they're doing for their performance. There's nothing more disheartening for a student who everything on their ballot says, "Oh, you're amazing. This was awesome. You're the best." And then they get rated as the 6th or 7th performer, which means last in the round. The kids will come back very frustrated because they won't know what they need to do to improve. So anywhere where you can say, "Hey, I think you could do better here and here and here," that's actually what the kids want to hear. They want that feedback that allows them to improve over the course of the semester. Good things are nice, and you should say nice things to kids when they're doing things well, but also you want to keep some focus on things that they could do to improve. So to review, here's what a typical ballot will look like. This is one for humorous acting. You'll see that there's lots of different elements on this ballot, and all different events will look very similar to this. Number 1 is make sure that you sign it right there on the judge's signature line. Number 2 is make sure that you rank them. So remember, each person has to receive, no two contestants may receive the same rank. Then you have to rate them. Remember that you can give two people the same quality points, but they should correspond. And finally, is you need to provide some feedback. You can use the front of this. You'll notice how there's a bunch of variety of questions on the front. That will help you make selections on, this is different criteria for different events. So it'll say things like, is the character delineation vivid and consistent? Like you can simply write yes and no's there, or you can write longer, more detailed explanations on the back of your ballots to correspond with kind of the criteria that it is that you are looking for. So, speaking of ballots, let's go ahead and take a look at what specifically are you looking for then when you are judging. I would tell you to first pay attention to the different criteria on each ballot. The kids, remember, will bring you their ballots. When they bring you the ballots, you as they're performing, you can kind of review what it is that you're supposed to be looking for. I would tell you in general, what you're looking for is professionalism. Does the kid look professional? Do they act professional? Are they confident when they walk in, or are they clearly nervous and not prepared to speak? Do they have an ability to move the audience, whether that's in laughter or tears or just they get you to think about what it is their topic is? It really moved you in some way. To me, that's what it requires a higher ranking than those who aren't professional, aren't confident, or don't really have that ability to move the audience. This is a public performance type of class, either acting or speaking. So things to pay attention to would be, can you hear them? Are they clear? Like, are they enunciating? Do they have nonverbal delivery issues that seem to get in the way? Their hands are waving, or they're too stiff, or something just doesn't seem quite right nonverbally. And in general, how is the overall quality of the performance? The analogy I always give to any judge that asks me is this would be the equivalent of going to the movies. When you watch the movie, if you walk out, can you form an opinion on whether you thought it was a good movie or a bad movie? My guess is yes. Yes, you can form an opinion. And that opinion is basically what you would write down on your ballot. In my opinion, this is what I saw, good and or bad. Now let's talk a little bit about the specific events. However, I would again encourage you to pay attention to those specific criteria points for the specific events on their ballots. But generally speaking, we can break the events down as follows. You may be judging prose or poetry. What that means is you are judging an interpretation event. They will walk in, students will, walk in with a very small book that they will interpret from. Technically, they're supposed to read from the book. However, most kids don't usually read 100% from the book. It's a little bit of an interpretation. So you kind of have to walk a fine line. Are they too much in the book? Are they too much out of the book? It should be somewhere in between. They are not allowed to move around the room like an acting event, so they have to stay fairly close to within like a small, maybe a couple steps here and there, but they're not allowed to move their body as much as an actor would. If you're in the event of prose, what that means is you're judging a short story, so it should have the elements of a short story, a plot, characterization, figurative language that allows you to see the pictures of the story, and it has a universal lesson that you like. If you're in the event of poetry, the only definition by poetry here is that it must have poetic elements. It's going to sound very similar to a prose. You're going to have things in there like onomatopoeia, alliteration, similes, metaphors. It's a little bit different sounding than a prose, but I would also tell you that it does not have to rhyme. Please don't require that as one of your requirements as a judge for poetry. Poetry does not have to rhyme. There are many forms of poetry. Some students will choose to use rhyming poetry, but some students will not. Don't punish them because of whether or not their poetry rhymes. Decide to judge them based on how they deliver that poetry in terms of, was it confident? Was it well delivered? Could I hear it? Was it clear? All those elements. And also pay attention to what the specific ballot tells you. Next, you might be in an acting event, such as humorous or dramatic acting. What you should know about this is that they are not allowed to use props, so they must pantomime everything. They may portray multiple characters. In fact, if they're in humorous acting, chances of them portraying a variety of different characters is very, very high. If they're in dramatic acting, they may have one or two characters, but very rarely does a dramatic act have multiple characters to it. The overall goal, whether you're humorous or dramatic, is to make the judge feel like they can be believed. The competitor is creating an environment in which you're kind of sucked into that world and you believe that they are these characters, hook, line, and sinker. Obviously, humorous is designed to be funny, but it can have elements of seriousness to it. So it doesn't have to be an entire 10 minutes of pure funny. It can have a variety of different levels to it. And the interesting part of humorous is it does depend on the humor of the judge. So if you find something to be distasteful, please write that down. If you find it to be hilarious, write that down. The coaches and the competitors want to have that feedback from you. If you're in the event of dramatic, that means you're going to be seeing some very serious content in terms of what they're delivering to you. But it also can have elements of funny to it. In fact, I talk a lot about if you want to have a good dramatic piece, you should probably have some elements of funny to go along with that dramatic to make it a better, more well-rounded performance for the judge. But please keep in mind that when you're providing feedback, this is going to be very, very serious in terms of the content that is delivered to you. If you feel it's out of line or inappropriate for high school level competition, then please, again, write that down. That's what the coaches and competitors want to hear. Next, in terms of acting, is duo or duet. We offer both of these at our tournaments. This means there's going to be two actors instead of one that walk into the room with you. They can be, in terms of material, either funny, serious, or a combination of both funny and serious. Actors can portray one character or they can portray multiple characters, just like an HI or a DI. The only difference is there's two actors instead of one. There's slight differences in rules, though, that you'll want to pay attention to. If you're in the event of duo, you have to know that the actors cannot make direct eye contact with one another. So they can make indirect contact with one another, eyes. I can look at someone's belly if they're my partner, but I can't look at them in the eyes. They may look at each other, though, in the eyes for the introduction. They also may not touch each other during the performance. So the goal is that it's supposed to look like a humorous act or a dramatic act, but with just two actors. If you're in the event of duet and judging, the actors may look at each other, they may touch one another, and they may walk around the room as they see fit to establish the scene. It's all pretty much anything goes in a duet. So duo is a little bit more limited, and duet is less. Now we're into the public speaking events. You may be judging oration or informative. Both speaking events are public speaking events, which means they have written their own speech. They have written this based on the research and they've pulled in personal stories or anecdotes to try to explain the subject that it is that they are discussing. If they are doing a persuasion, then an oration, then they are actually trying to persuade you on a particular subject. It doesn't have to be literal. In fact, most orations are pretty figurative in terms of getting you to just think maybe a little bit differently about a subject or inspire you towards something. If you're judging informative, it's a slightly shorter speech and it's designed to inform you on a subject. In fact, I tell my informative speakers the ultimate goal here is that if you're the judge and you leave the room and you want to talk about what you learned about that subject with other judges, then that informative speech did its job. So when you're judging this, just understand that oration is designed to persuade you, and informative is designed to essentially educate you on some subject. Next is the limited speaking events, either extemporaneous or impromptu. Both of these, again, are public speaking events, so it is a speech that the student has written. The difference here between oration, informative, and then these two events is that they have limited time to prepare their speech. If it's an extemporaneous speech, then they only have 30 minutes of time to prepare what it is that they plan on speaking about. And they do not know what their topic is until the round begins. They draw their topic out, they have 30 minutes to prepare, and then they show up to your room so that you can judge them on how well they've written and researched and delivered their particular speech. In extemp, you know that there are two topics or kinds of extemp. One is called DX or domestic extemp, and the other is called IX or international extemp. Domestic extemp means that they will be talking on current events related to the United States of America. Their goal is to utilize pretty heavily citations from publications or websites, that sort of thing, to demonstrate that they have researched their particular topic. If it's international STEM, their topics can range from anywhere outside of the United States. So, literally, anything that does not deal with the United States in terms of a current event may be discussed by your particular speaker. Again, it's the use of resources and citation to derive at answering a particular question for their speech. If you're judging impromptu, it's a little bit different. Impromptu does not use citation. Instead, it uses examples to try to prove a particular point. The difference here for impromptu is they only have 5 minutes of time to prepare on a subject that they have no idea about until that round starts. They draw, they have 5 minutes to think about what they want to say, then they show up to your room so that you can judge them on that particular topic. You got to give them a little leeway here. 5 minutes is not much time to think about what they want to say, but you'll definitely be able to tell the kids who are really good at thinking on their feet versus those who maybe are struggling. Either way, provide them some feedback to let them know what they're doing well versus what they can improve on. Well, those are all of the events, so let's just assume you've watched all your performances and now it's after the performance. What do you do next? Once all of your performances have taken place in your room, you need to make sure that you have ranked them, you have provided them a rate, and you have written some additional comments for them. Also, don't forget to sign your ballots. You can return your ballots to the judges table where you picked up your initial card. When you get there, the students will ask you to please wait for them as they check your ballots. What they've been instructed by me, and they know is their job, and I take it pretty seriously, so they take it pretty seriously, is to make sure that your ballots are accurately filled out. The worst thing we can do is to have you miss a ranking and then you leave the building and we're not able to figure out where these people fit in terms of ranking, and it kind of just slows the whole tournament down. So give them a little bit of leeway when they're trying to check your ballots for accuracy. It shouldn't be taken personally. They're just trying to do their best job. If you have some time in between any of your rounds or a little bit of a lull in your room, please feel free to visit our hospitality room. We try to have drinks, breakfast, snacks, lunch, anything that you need. We feel very thankful and grateful that you are here helping us by volunteering to judge. And so if you have an opportunity in between rounds, please stop by our hospitality room. Once you do that, you would report to either your next round if you've volunteered to judge the round after their first, or you would be released at that time and we would thank you for your time. With that said, thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you very much for volunteering to judge for the Seaman Forensics Tournament. We could not do this without you. If you have any questions about how to judge, any further questions, or you think you need any further assistance on anything specific, please don't hesitate to either email me at dralph@usd345.com or give me a call, or talk to the student that recruited you because they've been in the class for a semester now and they've got a pretty good idea of what to expect for what they've seen for judges and what judges have done at other tournaments that they've been to. If you have any questions, please email, call, or ask. We're always here to help you because you've been here to help us, and we truly appreciate that. Thank you.